Okay, Erev Tov, everybody. Pleasure to welcome Ruth Shane. It's like always funny introducing her. I would say she's one of our star pupils who comes to many Motion Shiurim, often has many good questions, comments, insights. So I think it's really wonderful that someone who comes really often to learn from others is also able to teach and wants to teach. And she's a graduate, I think, at Barnard and Yale, taught for many years, degrees in science, but I guess her passion is Torah. I think learned with Rabbi Foreman of Aleph Beta, and so she occasionally asked me if she could give a shir. So it's a pleasure from Baltimore, Maryland, to welcome Ruth Shane to give the shir this evening. Okay, Vakasha.
Thank you so much. All right. Hello, everybody. Today is Thursday, September the 12th, and the Parshat is Teze. I sent out a sheet, which is just a listing of the texts that I'm going to use. And I will use a share screen so you can see the text in front of you, but we're going to be comparing two different sets of psukim at the same time. So I had the privilege of presenting the sister parsha to our parsha, Ki Teze, was a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. The parsha that is the twin of this parsha is this parsha with the same name, Vayetze. These two parshiot are intimately intertwined, and that's what I want to show you today. But my premise is that we don't really ever hear the divine author, that is Hashem. We almost never hear his editorializing. We have stories with characters, and they do different things, and some of the things are pretty horrible, and some of the things are pretty shocking, and yet there's no comment. There's no critical comment. There's no and he did ra be'enei Hashem, like as we see all through Sefer Melachim. God's characters do things, and we wonder, what does God think? What we wish we had some guidance here as to how to evaluate it. There's only one time that I know of where the divine author actually gives us a critique. He actually tells us what he feels about the action that the character did, and I'll show you that right now. The only place that I've ever come across is right here, where I don't mind. Yeah, well, that's where you are. Okay, and we should be able to get here we go. All right, so this is Bereshit chapter 25. I am looking at verses 29, 30, but I'm focusing on something further down. I'm just starting it up here so you know where I am. This is the soup story. This is the story of Yaakov is cooking a pot of soup, and Esav comes in from the field, and he's hungry and tired, and he wants some of that. And so, as you know, the story begins right here. Oops, that's what I cannot do with Safaria, is click on anything. So you'll excuse me. I have to get rid of this. Okay, so I'm just going to use this little pointer here. Vayazed Yaakov Nazid is usually translated as he was cooking up a pot of stew, but this word Yazed is the same as Mezid. So we could translate this as, and Yaakov was plotting a plot. And Esav comes in from the field. You know the story. He says, give me that. And Yaakov says, well, what will you give me for this? And Esav says, okay, fine. What do you want? And he says, I want the Bechorah. And Esav says, oh, sure, fine. Yeah, okay, fine. I just want the soup. Okay, so Yaakov, verse 34, Yaakov gives Esav bread and the soup, the lentil soup. And then we have a string of verbs. Vayochal, vayesht, vayakum, vayelech. He eats, he drinks, he gets up, and he leaves. He goes away. And then we have this gratuitous end to the verse. Vayivez Esav et habechora. Now that's not the action. That's not an action. The story ends with him leaving the room. So this is a comment by the narrator. Vayivez Esav et habechora. Esav, as it says here, I like this. He shamed the birthright. And notice this is a translation by Rabbi Shraga Silverstein. Notice what he puts in brackets. Scripture testifying to this effect. That is, this is the editor, the writer, the author is commenting on the action of Esav. And it's a negative comment. By Yves, he shamed it. He dissed it. It's a negative word. So whatever happened in this story, and now there's no comment on what Yaakov did, but what Esav does is frowned upon by the author. Okay. So this is the only time that I know of where the divine author tells us what he thinks about what just happened. So do we ever, well, I'd rather you hold questions for a while so I can get going here, and then it might come clear. Okay, that's just an example. I don't want to, that's not the topic of tonight. Tonight's topic is our story, Ki Teze, and my thesis that it is the commentary on the life of Yaakov as it begins in Parshat Vayetze. The things that happen in Vayetze, and a lot of things happen. And some of them are, as I said, really head-scratching. But there's never a comment from the divine author. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this something we should be doing? And I believe that Ki Teze la milchama is Moshe's / God's way of commenting on the stories of Yaakov and his family in the guise of presenting his laws. Now, these laws could have been presented like they are in Mishpatim, dry, bang, 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 don't, yes, yes, no, no. But these laws in Ki Teze are surrounded by, extra words and evocative words and a story. And after a while, you said, wait a minute, I've heard this before. But there are differences between the law and what the story behind it is. And I believe that this is Hashem's way of letting us know, certainly Moshe and Hashem, that the law is this instead of what happened in the story, as if to say, don't do that, do this. And this is why I'm giving you these laws. Some of them sound strange, but the narrator, Moshe, is saying, you know what? We've seen this before, and we know how either terrible it turns out or the consequences of not following these laws. And so what I want to do with you tonight is go back. And I believe that the Chachamim, when they divided up the Torah into readings, they could have done it any old way they wanted, but they clearly delineated the start of the Parsha as Ki Teze la milchama. And they on purpose, they ended it with remember Amalek. And then it includes all of these story laws because they recognized what I'm saying right now, that this Ki Teze is a commentary on Vayetze and Vayishlach, those two, and Vayeshev, those stories, the Yaakov stories. All right, so the question we could ask, and maybe we'll find out the answer, is something that you could like this. By pitting Yaakov's story against the premise of Ki Teze la milchama, when you go out to war. There's something about Yaakov's leaving home and going to Aram, which is the beginning of a war, a personal war. And I think that that's where we start. And that's why it sounds like, wait a minute, you're going out to war. What does that have to do with Yaakov leaving home? A lot, a lot. Okay. So, in setting it up like this, Moshe, God, is highlighting the true stakes of Yaakov's sojourn in Aram. It's not just, oh, well, he had to leave home and he came there and things happened. It's more like the turning point. Things could have gone so wrong that we wouldn't be here as a nation. So let's go. So now, if you have a chumash, keep a piece of paper in Bereshit, and then another piece of paper here in Ki Teze in Devarim, because we're going to be flipping back and forth. You can look at the screen, but if you want to follow along in your own translation and your own chumash, please do so. Okay, so I'm going to share screen, and there we go. Okay, so that's where we were. I have to move some stuff out of the way that you can't see, but I can. Okay. When I share screen like this, I can't see all your faces, so just bear with me. All right, so we're going to start here in here. Now I have a side by side. All right, but because this is Safaria, I can't highlight anything or else I'll lose the screen and it'll get all messed up. So if you can follow this little pointer when I use it here and over here, I will be, this is how we're going to go. All right, so our parsha starts. Ki tetse la milchama, when you go out to war against your enemy. And just think about Yaakov. He's leaving home. That's over here. Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva, vayelech Harana. He's going to Haran. That's Aram Naharaim. That's the Altahaim, where the family comes from. But people there are, well, Lavan for sure is a sketchy character. And he is perhaps walking into a battlefield. Okay. Now here, but let's straighten out our parsha. So you, Ben Yisrael, you go out to war against your enemy, as sometimes it will happen. And you are successful, you are victorious. Vishavita shivyo, and you take captives. Okay. Viraita, this is verse 11. Viraita bashivya, you see amongst the captives, oh boy, an Eshet Yefat Toar. Trixie. And she's exotic and she's foreign and she's very attractive. The chashakta ba, this is word, chet, shin, kuf, chashakta ba, and you really want her. And lakachta lecha leisha, and you take for yourself her as a wife, or you want to take her to be a wife. It's not going to be so easy. There will be consequences and there will be restrictions on that. All right. For Yaakov, he leaves Haran, he leaves Beersheba, and then we're going to skip all this about the dream and everything. We'll come back to something here in a little while. But well, let me just note here, before I skip down to his arrival in Aram Naharaim, notice that on his journey to Aram, he stays, sleeps that night, he has the big dream, and when he wakes up from the dream, Vayidor, I'm over here on the right, Vayidor Yaakov Neder. Yaakov makes a neder. That will become very important in our parsha Ki Teze. Because remember, he never fulfills this neder. Okay, now, let me just skip down here to his arrival in Aram. And you know the scene, there's the well and the shepherds and the stone on the well. We're not worried about that right now. What I want to notice is the arrival of the girl. So we move down here and we're at verse 10. So now, Bereshit 29, verse 10, we're going to compare that to Ki Teze. So in Ki Teze over here, V'ra'ita, you see or you saw, let's just use the present tense, you see a Yefat Toar, V'chashakta, you want her. Now, Yaakov, what happens in Aram? Ka'asher ra'a, same thing. See, Yaakov sees. What does he see? Oh, Rachel. Yes. And we will hear, not in this verse, but a few verses later, what do we hear about her? Yeah, you can all chime in if you want. That Rachel is, yeah, she's a Yefat Toar and a Yefat Mar'eh. And you might say to yourself, oh, okay, fine. She's the Yefat, question, is she the exotic foreign woman captive? That's the question. Or is there another character in this story that takes the role of the captive woman who is desired or who has a desire? Well, maybe desire is not what we're looking for here. So he sees Rachel, and what does he do? He takes the rock off the well, but then look at verse 11. Vayishak Yaakov l'Rachel, vayisa et kolo vayeft. Yishak, that means either he gave her a drink of water or he kissed her. And then, wait, we skipped a part here. Yes, I skipped a part. When he takes the stone off of the well, I'm sorry, in verse 10, vayashk etzon lavan achi imo. Yaakov is the one who vayashk. He gives the sheep water, or maybe he kisses them. So we have vayashk and vayishak. And back here in Ki Teze, we have chet, shin, kuf. This is the word I'm focusing on. This is the word here, and it's paralleled by the vayashk and vayishak. And then he cries. Okay, so at this point, think about who is the captive and who is doing, and Yaakov, okay, so Yaakov is crying. Now let's go back to the captive, the Yefat Toar in Ki Teze. So what happens? This is verse 12, back here in Deuteronomy. Ve'heveita el toch beitcha. You, the guy out there, the soldier, bring her to your house. And then you do some things to her. She cuts her nails, blah, blah, blah. And she changes her clothes. And in verse 13, vayashva beveitecha, she lives in your house, uvachta, and she cries for her father and her mother, because she's lost them. She's crying for her lost parents. Yerach yamim, a month, a whole month. Now I come over here to Yaakov's story. Yaakov is the one who's crying. And what happens to him? Rachel runs back and says, oh, you'll never know who I met at the well. Lavan, her father, comes out to greet his kin. He hugs him, he kisses him, and here, Vayiviehu el beito, like the captive woman, Lavan brings Yaakov into his house. And then Yaakov vayeshev imo chodesh yamim. Same thing. So the captive woman in Ki Teze, she's the one who's crying. She's crying for her parents. Yaakov is crying in his story. And he's crying for many things, including the fact that he's not home. He's in exile. He had to leave home. And he doesn't have his mom, and he doesn't have his dad. His mom, whom he loves, and his dad, whom he wishes he could love, and he wishes that dad would love him as much as Yitzchak loves Esav. Yaakov is overwhelmed by the realization that he is not home. And he's among their relatives, but they're not really. And he's brought into the house not by Rachel, but by Lavan. Lavan is the captor, and Yaakov is the Yafat Toar. He's the captive foreigner. In Yaakov's story, Rachel is not a foreigner. Yaakov is the foreigner. Lavan has captured him, has brought him into his house, and a month goes by, just as it did in the Teze story. And after a month, as you know, the story goes, Lavan says to Yaakov, you're just hanging around here. What do you want to do? Like, what are you doing here? And what is it that Yaakov says to Lavan? Because Lavan says, all right, name your price. You're a really good worker. Ata, and this is verse 15 in Bereshit. Ata, you are my brother. Va'avadatani chinam. You can't work for me for nothing. So tell me what's your price? And now we get the description of the girls. And now we have this very strange verse. Vaye'ahav Yaakov et Rachel, verse 18. Nobody loves anybody in the Torah except for Yitzchak. And that's only after he's married and he knows her and he understands her and he treasures her. Yaakov doesn't know Rachel. He doesn't know her. And all of a sudden he's ahaving her. But he says, I'll work for 7 years for your daughter, Rachel. Okay. So when the 7 years are up, in verse 20, Yaakov has worked 7 years. And in verse 21, he says to Lavan, Hava et ishti, very coarse language. Hava et ishti, give me my wife. Bring her to me. Ki mala'u yamai, I have completed my sentence. I've filled my days. The avoa eleha, and I will just come on to her. Very crass, coarse way of speaking. Let's look at the parallel language in Teze. Right? She has to stay in the house and cry for a month, Yerach Yamim. The achar kain, after the month, after that time that she is in limbo, achar kain, which is the same as after his 7 years were over, and you, the captor, you, the guy who brought her home, Cain, after the 6th month, tavo eleha, the same language, tavo eleha, the avoa eleha. You can go to her. You can, just get it on with her. Uva'alta, and you become her lord. Uva'alta, you possess her. V'hayita l'cha le'isha, and she's your wife. It's that same language. Hava as ishti, avoa eleha. Same language here. Now, you might be starting to get confused. I'm going to stop this here for just a second. Whoops. I don't want you to see that. Okay. This technique of taking 2 stories and taking the characters from one story and trying to parallel them to the other story sometimes gets a little mushy, because sometimes one character bifurcates into 2 or 3 characters. So Yaakov is at the same time the Yafat Toar, and he's also the captor. He's Lavan. Every time he steps into the story, he is the captor. He is the Baal. And he wants Yaakov to be his servant forever. He does not want to let him go. And here's poor Yaakov who's crying and thinking about mommy and daddy and how he misses them. And but wait a minute, but he's not the Yifat Toar. Isn't Rachel the Yifat Toar? Sometimes she is, but it's like she's just the shiny object. The two protagonists are Lavan and Yaakov. So let's keep on going. So you have to go with the flow. You have to say to yourself, all right, sometimes these characters are going to switch their positions, but they're all working at the same time. Okay, so we're going to have to speed this up quite a bit. But I want you to see this one story really carefully, and then the other stories we will skim through, but you can do it yourself once you see how this works. Okay, now, so then what happens? Here we are. Okay, so Yaakov says, hey, give me my wife, give me Rachel. I want give her to me. So Lavan proceeds to make a big wedding party, a mishteh, and when I did Vayetze with you back a year or so ago or more, the language here, Vayehi ba'erev, Vayehi ba'boker, is the only indication we get from the divine author that he believes or he feels that this is proper, that this is the woman he's supposed to marry. And this will be the beginning. This is the new creation story, but we're not discussing that right now. All we want to do is focus on wedding night. And oops, but in the morning, it's Leah. And Yaakov doesn't say anything to her that we know of, but he does say to Lavan in verse 25, Ma zot asita? Ma zot asita li? What did you do, Lavan? Halo berachel avadati imach? I worked for Rachel. Duh. Lama rimitani. Why have you tricked me? Okay. So Lavan says to him, okay, you know what? You don't know how we do things here, but you know what? I try this. Verse 27. Malay Shavua zot. Just finish up, fill out the 7 days of celebration with this one. V'nitna lecha gamet zot ba'avoda. And then I'll give you the other one. And but you'll work for me for another 7 years. Vaya'as Yaakov came. And that's exactly what he does. Instead of something else. What is the something else that he should have done when he realized that he got the wrong woman and he doesn't want her? Now we go to Teze for the commentary. V'haya, now I'm back in Teze, verse 14, chapter 21, verse 14. V'haya im lo chafatzta bo, if you decide after you waited the month and then you finally get in bed with her and you decide you don't want her. This is what you have to do. V'shilachta lenafsha, you have to let her go free. You can't keep her captive. You can't hold on to her if you don't want her. You can't subject her to that kind of distress, of apathy, of just being ignored and just you don't like her, you don't want her. Umachar lo timkrena, you cannot sell her either. She's like freeborn. She's not a slave anymore. She's not a captive. She is your wife. She's free, and you have to let her go. You cannot sell her for money. Lo titamer batachat asher inita. Since you had your way with her and you oppressed her, inita, you impressed her, you cannot enslave her. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't hold on to her and make her life miserable. But Yaakov, back here on the right side, Yaakov did what Lavan said. He gave Leah 7 days, and then he got Rachel. And after 7 days, he was going to turn all his attention to Rachel, and that was the end of it. Vaye'ahav gamet Rachel mileah. He paid way more attention to to Rachel than to Leah. And Vayar Adonai ki sinu'at Leah. God saw right away. Leah is the one who is cast by the side of the road. Sinu'ah is translated as unloved here, which is good, because as Elie Wiesel famously said, the opposite of hate or hatred is apathy. And it's worse to be ignored. It's worse to be given the cold shoulder that Yaakov gave to Leah. And then that's why she started having children. But the divine author tells us that's not what you're supposed to do. In this situation, you let her go. You don't torture her anymore. So now in Yaakov's life, he's got 2 wives. All right. One of them he's all crazy for, and the other one he couldn't care less about. The one he couldn't care less about, poor Leah, she has child after child after child. Her first child, she calls Reuven. She says, Ki ra'a Adonai, in verse 32, because God saw how I ignored. Maybe now my husband will pay attention to me. Ye'ehaveni. Maybe he will give me attention. But of course, she's just disappointed again and again. Reuven is her firstborn, Yaakov's firstborn. But you know how the story goes. As soon as Rachel has a baby, that child is going to be the Bechor, by hook or by crook. And now back to Ki Teze. Okay, so that's the end of the Ki Teze story. Comment. What did Yaakov do? Did he do the right thing or the wrong thing? Well, God says, I don't really approve of what he did. He should have just kept Leah and gone home, which he should have done, but he didn't do it. He took the bait from Lavan, and he stayed another 7 years, getting further and further entrenched in Aram and Aram lifestyle and Aram society. And we're biting our nails, because the longer he stays there, the smaller his chances of being able to break free. And now, of course, lurking in the background here is Lavan, who, as the captor, should have let Yaakov go after 7 years. But since this is not Lavan's story, and since Lavan doesn't care, and the Torah was not given to him, we have to drop him out of the picture when we talk about what God is saying here in Ki Teze. You should have let her go. Now, the next topic in Ki Teze is a man has 2 wives. Oh, yeah, and you can see that right away. This is the Yaakov story. It's just continuing. One of them is beloved, and one of them is ignored. And they both give him children, but the child, the other woman is the one who gives him the child first. So Haben HaBechor belongs to the wife he doesn't like or doesn't care for. It's not even like, it's just he just doesn't care about her. And then we learn in Ki Teze, and when it comes to dividing up his estate, God says, no hanky-panky here and no fooling around. The Bechor, the firstborn son, is the firstborn son. And regardless of who the wife is, the firstborn boy is the firstborn boy, and you cannot deny him his part of the estate. And that part of the estate that goes to the Bechor, now I'm in verse 17 of chapter 21 in Deuteronomy, the Bechor of the unwanted wife, that boy, Yakir, he has to recognize him and give him pishnayim, that is a double portion. Asher yimot selo, these words are important, in all that belongs to him. Asher yimot selo is his estate, that which belongs to him. The word Yakir, yimatse, Bechor, because the Bechor is Reshit Ono. You add, Debbie, who is Reshit Ono?
Reuven.
Exactly. And Yaakov calls him that at the end. So I'm not going to jump. I'm not going to waste time to jump to the end of Vayechi. But clearly, Moshe and God are referring to Reuven right here, and they're coming right out and saying it. Reshit Ono. Duh, that's Reuven. That's throwing us right back into the Yaakov story. And this is the exact scenario. Reuven is passed over, and the Bechor of the Ahuva, that is Rachel, he is made into Yaakov's Bechor, Yosef. You know the whole story. And in fact, Yaakov splits Yosef into two Shvatim and ends up giving Yosef two portions instead of one portion. That it's clear that, and God says, don't do that. So if you want
Leah is referred to as the Snu'ah, refers to herself.
Yes, she even feels herself. It's not like she's not aware of it. She feels the apathy. It's a horrible situation. No woman should be put in that situation. And that's what God is saying here in Ki Teze. God help you if you do that to a woman. Don't do that. So now, these words of the Yakir and the Yimat Selo, you will find them in the Yosef story. Let's see, where are we going to find them? Oh, no, Bereshit Rabbah, forget that. Wait a minute. Yeah, there it is. Okay. This is the sale of Yosef story. They've already gotten rid of Yosef, they come home with the bloody coat and they say to their father. So this is chapter, what is that, 37? Yes, this is chapter 37 in Bereshit. I'm in Bereshit now, and look for the words that we just saw in Ki Teze. So they send the bloody coat home and they bring it to their father and they say, Zot matzanu, matzah, hakerna, that's the yakir. Haketonet bincha, is this your son's ketonet? And the ketonet, remember, is that extra fancy coat which Yaakov gave to Yosef to designate him as the big shot of the family. And then in verse 33, Vayakira, Yakir again. Yaakov recognizes the coat and everything that it means. This is Yosef's coat, and he is my Bechor. And the matzanu, when the brothers use the word matzanu, that's echoed in Ki Teze, his estate. This Zot matzanu, this is the one who took our estate. These are the other brothers saying, we are the children of Leah, and your estate belongs to us also, but you're not acting that way, Daddy. Okay, so let's go back. So I just want to show you that. Let's see. Okay, we have the Snu'ah. Okay, before we go into the next story, no, not that. You know what? Let me get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so the next story is the Ben Sorer Umoreh. So, can anybody guess? Now you should be able to do a little bit of guessing here. I mean, take the chair down. who's going to be, no, stop the share, sorry. Who's going to be the Ben Sarer Moreh?
Shimon,
Good. And there's a pair.
Levi.
Shimon and Levi, they are the Ben Sarer Umoreh. Now, and that's the next story in Ki Teze. If you've done all this already, you have made a mess of your family, and you're bound to have kids who don't listen to you, and kids who don't, and especially if they are the children of the Isha Sinuah, they are going to care less about your name and your condition and what other people think about you. They will do something horrible just to stick their finger in your eye. And that's Shimon and Levi. And what story am I referring to? Dinah and
Shechem.
The Shechem story. Yes. Let's go. Let me just give a quickie look at the Shechem story, just the end of it. And I need to be in the Shechem story. No, not that one. Yeah, here we go. Okay, this is Bereshit 34, and this is the end of the whole story. This is after Shimon and Levi have gone off like loose cannons and massacred the whole town, way overboard. Not something that should normally be done. That's not how you deal with people. And that's certainly not how in Ki Teze at the end, which we may not get to, but I'll just jump Ba'al Peh and remind you of the law at the very end of this parsha. If a man, a young man or an older man, has relations with a young woman, wherever because he convinces her that this is going to be a good thing, but then he comes to you and says, I want to marry her. Or maybe he doesn't say that, but you can organize his brain to accept her and marry her. Of course, he can never divorce her, but that's what you do. If you find out that your daughter has been fooling around with some guy, you get a shotgun wedding. Marry her to that guy. It's not the best solution, but it's much better than Levi and Shimon's version of how to solve this situation, which is massacring everybody. And Yaakov says to them at the end, this is verse 30 in chapter 34. Yaakov says to Shimon and Levi, Achartem oti, you've made my name mud. You've ruined my reputation. Lahav isheni beyoshev haaretz. Amongst the people, I am shamed. Excuse me, Yaakov, aren't you going to say something about Dinah? No. He's worried about not Dinah. He's just worried about the mess that Shimon and Levi have made for his neighbors. They aren't going to like him, and he's going to be troubled. The nishmarati ani uveti, and I and my whole house, we could be wiped out by the hornet's nest that you have stirred up. That's what he says. They don't answer him, but they do say something out loud. You can almost see them slamming the door and saying, Hakizona ya'aseh et achotenu? Are we going to let him, ya'aseh, is he going to make our sister a zona? They are so angry at Yaakov. They can't even say our father. They just call him he. They are angry, and the anger is going to keep on bubbling until it gets worse and worse. Shimon and Levi. So again, another story that God says in Ki Teze, that is not how I want you to, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. That's not how you're supposed to behave. So let's go back. Let's go back to our list. Oh, you know what? Get rid of Bereshit Rabbah. We don't need that either. Okay, here we are. Okay, so let's see. that takes care of that story in Ki Teze. That's the Bansorer Umoret, that's Shimon and Levi. Okay. Dire consequences. Dire consequences for this Bansorer Umoreh. And notice in Ki Teze, the parents have to testify that they did everything they could to get this boy to listen and behave, and they can't control him anymore. That's two parents parenting the children. And that's not what happened in the Yaakov story. Now, then we're going to skip a few verses and some more verses. Oh, yes. So the next bunch of laws have to do with Hoshavat Avedah, returning something that's lost. And it may be something that's lost for a long time. And in verse 2, now we've moved into chapter 22 of Deuteronomy, but now God says, and even if you see something, you see a lost animal or object, you have to take it into your house, you have to take it, and you have to wait, hold on to it until somebody comes looking for it. You have to think about the possessions of your brother, your kin. And you should do this. This is verse 3. This is Rabbi Foreman's Chiddush. V'chein ta'aseh, you should do this. Chamoro, 1, his donkey. Kein ya'aseh ta'aseh l'simlato, 2, for his garment, his piece of clothing. And kein ta'aseh, you should also do it. L'chal avadat achicha, all the things that he loses, that he could lose. Umitzata lo mimenu umitzata, you found it. Lo tuchal lahit alem. If you see it, you have to take care of it. You can't just walk on by and leave it out there. But he lists, the divine author lists 3 things. Instead of just saying anything, like just a word, anything that he loses, he specifies 3 things: simila, chamor, a donkey, clothing, and then a catch-all category. So Rabbi Foreman sees these three things are the same as the 3 things that were lost, and the person who lost them tried to find them, but not really, and then wrote them off as being lost. And there were dire consequences because of that.
Yehuda.
Yes, very good. The story of Yehuda and Tamar. And that story has got so many references back to Ki Teze. So the 3 things, the 3 things that Yehuda gives to Tamar, those 3 things, his staff, his seal, and his tzitzis, or patil, some kind of rope, some kind of special.
Tefillin.
Oh yeah.
Tefillin.
Oh, for sure. He gave the tefillin, both sets of tefillin, but it only counts as one thing. And in the end, he goes looking for them, but he can't really find them, and he gives up. But God says, "Lo tuchal lehit alem." Don't give up. Oh, I did the bad thing. I touched it. Okay. All right. And then let's see. No, that's not going to be. So now, so let me go back to her story. Yeah. Okay. So here we are. This is Bereshit 38, Lamed Chet 38, chapter 38. That's the big Yehuda and Tamar story. And remember, she goes through several of his children each one dies, and then the next son marries her. But then the third son, Shelah, Yehuda will not give to her. That's a story of Yibum. And Yibum is also covered in our Parsha, Ki Teze. But what you're supposed to do with the Yibum situation is not what Yehuda did. And that was frowned upon by God, although we don't find out about how he feels about Yibum and what should have been done until we get to our Parsha of Ki Teze. You can look that up for yourself. But here, there is the, why did I do that? Oh, yeah, this is Yehuda's reaction. Peremptory.
Hakerna.
Yeah, there was a lot of hakering. Yes, more haker. I'll guess. But the hakering is not the same. There's the matzah and then the haker, but it kind of like, it gets a bit mushy. That's true. But here are the three things: the chotemet, his seal, the petilim, and his mateh. These are the symbols of his authority, and he so easily will put them aside lest it come to scandal. He doesn't want to push his luck and try to find her. And here's another, while I'm in the story, let me point this out because we're running out of time. Remember, she says to him, I'll take these three things. Why does she take these three things from him? Because her price was a goat. And he didn't have a goat to give her. So he said, take these three things. Well, she said, I'll take those three things. And when you bring me the goat, I'll give you these things back. And it's very telling, as Rabbi Foreman points out, Yehuda, this is the story of Yehuda and Tamar, which is placed in the Torah right after the sale of Yosef and the bloody bloodied goat. They killed a goat to do that. And so in the next story, Yehuda doesn't have a goat to pay this woman he thinks is a prostitute, but she's not a prostitute. And there's a law in Ki Teze later on, we're not going to get to it, but there it is. You shall now have no Kedesha or a Kadesh, no male or female Kedesha, prostitute. That's what Yehuda thinks Tamar is. And he sends his, the next day when he gets back to his, where he's supposed to be, he sends his friend out with the goat looking for this, what he thinks is a Kedesha, a Zona. And so his friend is looking around. So she goes home. Yehuda sends the goat with his friends, the Adulami, to get back his three things. Well, so his friend in verse 21 now in chapter 38, he's asking around all the people and saying, Aye ha-kedesha, not Zona, but kedesha. That's the word that the divine author uses in Ki Teze, so you know exactly what story to go back to. Where is the kedesha who was here the other day on the road? And the people say, Lo hayata bazeh kedesha. We don't have any kedesha, because that's what God is going to say in Ki Teze. No good Jewish girl or Jewish boy should be in this line of business. Lo hayata bazeh kedesha. There was never a kedesha here. In other words, that woman that you slept with was not a kedesha. She wasn't here for a profane purpose. She was here to execute Yibum. She was kadosh. But that's another commentary on the story. That's just a sidelight. But the kedesha in the Yehuda and Tamar story is the kedesha in Parshat Ki Teze. Okay. Okay, we gotta go a little faster here. Okay, so let me get you guys out of the way. Oh, it's so hard for me to see my screen because I have all these little things in the way. I'm sorry about that. Okay, get that away. Okay, all right. Okay, Shiluch HaKain, we're going to skip that. Now, oh, here we go. I like this part here. Now, okay. There are several other stories about mistreating women, about dissing wives and treating them badly. You will notice them, and now you should always think, okay, Yaakov, treating women badly. And then, so we're going to skip that story. Now here is the story of the, oh yeah, this is the story, the chapter 22 in Devarim. That's the story of, that's really Shechem and Dinah. You've im basada yimtzai ha'ish nara. No, this is the Maruz. That's not Dinah. It's the next story. Here it is. It's verse 28. A man finds a girl, a virgin, out in the fields. That means not in the city, but out in the countryside. She's not engaged. She's not really like a Eshet Ish. And he, and he grabs her and they have relations and they're found out. Then the solution to that scenario is not to kill everybody in her family or his family, but it is to make a deal and shotgun wedding, marry her off. This is verse 29. The man who slept with her has to give her father 50 pieces of silver, and then she is his wife forever. So that's a caution to young men to think twice before they accost girls in the field, because you might have to marry her forever and never be able to divorce her. Okay, now, chapter 23. Who is this? Lo yikach ish et eshet aviv.
Reuven.
Reuven.
Yes, Reuven.
Reuven.
And
Bilhah.
Bilhah. Very good. This is Reuven and Bilhah. Don't do that. V'lo yigale knaf aviv. Like in any way, shape, or form. But yet, Reuven went ahead and did that. That's not the way you have an argument with your father. You talk to him. You get it out. You air it out. You don't just kill people or rape people. That does not work. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Okay. And then as we're going towards the end here. Okay. Wait, there was the last one I want. Oh yeah, here's the Kadesha. Lo tihye Kadesha mi benot Yisrael, v'lo yeh Kadesh. No Kadesha. Lo tihye Kadesha bazeh. That shouldn't be here. And don't make it happen. Yaakov, his sons were so angry that they were treating Dinah, in such a cavalier way. Don't do that. Don't do that. And then we go all the way to, let's try to wrap this up. Okay, we got Eshes Ish, Kadesha. Okay, we need this now. Remember when I pointed out when Yaakov left home and he stopped in Beit El and he vayidor neder. He made a neder. And then on his way back, well, listen to this and you tell me. Chapter 23 in Deuteronomy, verse 22, Ki tidor neder ladonai. You make a neder. Lo te'acher lishalmo. Don't dilly-dally. Don't delay fulfilling it. Ki darosh yidrashenu Adonai Elohecha me'imach. God will demand it from you. V'haya b'cha chet. And doing it this way, Reuben, is your way, delaying it, putting it off, or not keeping it. That's big sin. This, Bahaya B'cha Chet. Now, the making a neder, you got that. But what's this te'acher? How does that pop in?
Hashem has to remind him he has to leave.
One, he had to remind him to leave Aram, but the neder was had two parts. And if you bring me back, I swear what am I going to do? Yaakov swore, what was he going to
I'm
do?
going to bring a korban here.
Oh, a big. I'm going to give you how much?
Aser asrenu lach.
Aser.
Aser asrenu lach. I give you 10%.
Yep, a lot. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to give you a lot. Yes. The Natanli, if you do all that and I get returned here, that's Vayidor Neder. And then there's, well, you can't see the rest of it here, but we need to go here when he comes back.
Pasuk 22.
Yeah, so I got to get the right place for it. Nope, that's it.
Kavbet,
Okay.
Kavbet.
No,
22,
no.
go back.
The
Go
Acher.
back.
Oh, it's 32. Do I have 32 up here?
22.
No. I need the Acher, the Bereshit 32. All right, we're just going to use another one here.
Oh,
All right. Oh, I have so many things open. I'm losing track of them. I'm sorry. All right, here we go. 32. Are we at 32? Yeah, no, 32, please. That's 34. I want 32. Okay. Remember on the way home, he's worried about bumping into you-know-who, his brother, and he sends his brother a whole lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Well, maybe, 10% or more of what he brought with him? He sent a lot of stuff, and he sent a note. He said to his servants who were taking all of these animals, ahead of time, Vayishlach, ahead of time to give, a bribe to Esav, thinking that Esav was going to hurt him. And he says to his servant who's taking the animals, he says, Ko amar avdecha Yaakov, thus saith your servant Yaakov, im Lavan garti, I've been with Lavan all this time, va'echar, and I have dallied. I'm late. Va'echar. That's exactly what God says in Ki Teze. Don't acher. Don't delay paying your neder. You made a neder and you stayed in Lavan's house for way too long. Va'echar, you're admitting it, va'echar. And I was delayed. But the way he says it, I stayed. That's such a par of a translation of va'echar. It's really, I dilly-dallied. I dragged my feet. I made a neder and in fact, Yaakov never keeps it. He never keeps it. But he was on like a hair's thread. If he had not broken away from Lavan after, when he finally did, Lavan would have won. Lavan would have captured him and held on to him. Yaakov would never have come home, and there would be no Am Yisrael, because Yaakov would have just gotten, floated away with the imperial garbage. He would just become part of Lavan's household, and that would have been the end of it. There would be no Am Yisrael. There might be an Am of the child of Yitzchak. Remember, what the promise was, Ki b'Yitzchak yikare zera. Yitzchak will be the progenitor. Now, he had two sons, so, he's got an heir and a spare. If he lost Yaakov, there's still Esav. But then the arc of history would have been changed in ways we can't even imagine. And so this leads us back to, where's the, this is where I need to be now. Okay. Seyulamad. Can you see? Or do I have to share again?
No, we cannot see.
You can't see. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I have to go back. I clicked the wrong button.
Now you're going to the Agadah.
No, but I have to move. I have to get my little share thing down here. Okay, we have to do this right. This is Zoom. Okay. Okay. What do we say every Pesach in Magid? Seyulamad.
Ma bikesh Lavan hara.
Yes. What did Lavan want? What was his aim? What did he want to do to Yaakov? So Paro, da. Lavan, I'm sorry. It's so far yet. Lavan, bikesh, la'akor et hakol. I like this translation here. Lavan sought, well, he says destroy the whole of the family of Jacob. That is to say, really, la'akor here means to uproot or to destroy, because he, Lavan, is the captor of Ki Teze la milchama. Yaakov was going into a battlefield, and that was Lavan's household. And Yaakov is the captive. He's the exotic captive. And Lavan should have let him go, but he didn't. Yaakov had to weasel his way out of there and run away. Lavan wanted to hold on to Yaakov and make him disappear. La'akor, make him disappear. If Lavan had his way, Yaakov would have disappeared. He would have just sunk under the waves of the house of Lavan. So the parallels between Ki Teze and Vayetze are monumental. There is a battle that Yaakov went out, and he's the one who got captured, and he almost got lost. But he didn't. But he almost got lost. So is there some connection between the two? As you've seen, way many connections. And I got to stop. So you can ask questions or say throw stones or make comments, whatever you want.
I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. You're basically saying that Arami Avi means my father was the Eshet Yifat Torah lost.
You'll never think of Yaakov the same way again.
Oh, man.
Beautiful class.
Thank you. And thank you.
Brilliant. That was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was a great show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question. In a few weeks, we're going to be davening and we're going to be praying for our life. And the big claim we're going to make is L'chut Avot. We're going to play in the marriage of our fathers. And now I see that
Yeah. But you know, Moshe's that was Moshe's question to God when he said, I can't depend on zechut avot forever. It's really not their zechut. It's really the strength of the brit. We are the partners in the brit. We have our part to work on. God has his part. For him, for God, it's netzach, v'hisha amda. That God will never desert us, but he can get really angry with us. And we really need to show Hashem that we are worthy. We can't just sit on somebody else's laurels, I would say. But Yaakov, what can I say? He made a lot of mistakes. Okay.
No
And
one
he
is perfect.
suffered a lot.
No one is
Bevakasha.
perfect.
Let's see if Aviva has her hand up.
Oh, excuse me, Aviva?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, talk. I can't see you, but I have to find your face somewhere. Okay, go ahead. Ask your
Yeah.
question.
In a way, say Avos, can you hear me?
Yes,
In a way, it's
sure.
Masay Avos Siman Labanim. And
Mhm.
what's happening in Devarim is that the Torah is generalizing from the lives of the Avos and giving us the principles to guide us.
Absolutely, yes. Yes. If we didn't have Teze is the commentary on Bereshit, on the stories, and it's saying we want to know, because you can read the story of the Avot and you can spin it 6 ways to Sunday, that you could turn the whole story upside down so that Yaakov never made a mistake and everything he did is perfect because blah 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 blah. But the Kitetse says no, there are things that they did that especially Yaakov, he made mistakes, and look at the consequences of his mistakes. There are sinas chinam between the brothers, and yes, terrible things. So the remedy, or let's say the tikkun, is that's what you're trying to say? We need the laws of Ki Tetzei,
Now, I would say,
and we need the connection so we understand why the laws in Ki Tetzei are there to correct for any notions we might have that we can do the same things the Avos did at home. Don't try this at home.
Root to improve in Hebrew is called leshaper.
The Shaper.
Now we are blowing the shofar to make sure. Now we are blowing the shofar. It's Chodesh Elul, and it's right parashot.
Beautiful.
Ki tetzei, ki tavo.
Beautiful. The Shaper with the shofar. Beautiful. Thank you.
That was great. Just I know we're running late. Just a quick question, which there's no quick answer. Yes, Yaakov made mistakes, but didn't he suffer a lot?
Absolutely, he did.
Sure.
Yes.
Of all our rabbinus, like he's the one who suffered probably the most.
Yeah.
Even though he made the most mistakes. And that's
Exactly.
really the story of our people.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Good point. Yeah, he did. He
He
suffered a
suffered
lot.
Mida Keneged Mida also.
Yeah.
It's not just he suffered in the same way that he tricked others, he got tricked.
Yeah.
The 22 years, the 22 years, the 21 or 22 years.
That's
Yeah.
Mida Keneged Mida, yeah. It's a reverse comic, yeah, but okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, thank you very much, Ruth. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Very nice.
look forward to seeing you on the other end of the Zoom, next week. And my share tomorrow again is like last week, will be at 9:45. It just, please God, just for tomorrow, then we're back to our regular time, 9:15. I have an emergency fill-in I have to do at school, whatever. So tomorrow's share will be, and we're switching from the Siddur to the Machzor now that we're heavy into Elul. So please God, 9:45 tomorrow morning, my shir on the Machzor. We'll be discussing the Rosh Hashanah Amida, and then all our shir next week, beginning with Rabbi Liebtag at 11:15 in the morning. And I think already I sent out the email. A lot of people signed up already for our Rosh Hashanah Yom Iyun. That's next Sunday, the 22nd of September, 10 days before Yom Tov, not the Sunday before. And please invite a friend to join us. That's it. And I want to thank you. Really, it was, as you heard all the comments, very interesting, original style shir. But that's actually a point I spoke about last week in a totally different context. That the narrative and the laws of the Torah complement each other. That was we spoke about last week, the Egla Rufa and the Egel HaZahav. That was the share I gave. And that's the same concept, but that's and that's the point that apparently I first heard in the name of Rav Soloveitchik developed that theme. And then now we have this, I don't we call it intertextuality. Yeah, where one book comments on the other, but here basically the Chumash doing commentary on itself. It's really a very beautiful idea and very, very deep, powerful idea. Okay, and thank you for that, explicating all that, Ki Teze and Vayetze, and Ki Teze, then Ki Tavo, and then Nitzavim Vayelach, all the Parsha Hazino, even the sounds of the Parsha tell us.
Just let me point something out. I didn't get to say this, but the treatment of previous week's Parsha is a segue into this one, because the Egla Arufah is a Yosef Yaakov story. And
correct. It's right.
It's just
that's the famous midrash. I quoted that the Yaret Agalot, the play on words, that the Yosef Yaakov saw the Agalot, and that's how he knew that Yosef was alive. You know that midrash, right?
Yeah, that's a continuum. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Right, but it's Yosef, it's Yaakov made the mistake of Egla Rufa. In other words, Yaakov didn't.
But Yaakov's life is repeated in Yosef's life. So
that's something else.
Oh, it's just it's Yaakov Yosef. they go together.
Unfortunately, the only times it appears in the Chumash is by Rachel and by Yosef. That exact expression, I believe, only appears by Rachel.
Yes, Rachel and Yosef. Yeah, they are the Yefei.
Different versions by Sar, but the expression I think is only the same by Rachel, which is also interesting. But okay, all right, it is late, but people like to learn, so they stay late. Those who want to leave.
Can I just answer Jack, you asked, what about love at first sight? Not a good idea.
Well, no, I'm just saying you asked, you implied that he didn't know her. How could he love her so much if he didn't know her? He hardly knew her. And I'm asking, what about love at first sight? Is that a real phenomenon? And can that make the world spin?
No, because if you look into the part that I skipped, there's another treatment of a woman that you don't want. If you marry somebody and then you don't want her, you have to let her go. You have to give her a get. That's the remedy for you don't want her is let her go. And it sounds like you married somebody because, you thought you were in love and you thought you wanted her and you thought. But then reality sets in. That's the love at first sight is not real. I don't think so. You have to know somebody, and then
but it really happened.
With
right?
who?
It's not real, but it really happened.
I don't know it's very hard to understand what that meant, the hav, because in Torah, the ahava is a feature of hav, of giving. Ahav is giving. How can he wants to give everything to her, but she never says, there's no indication that she loves him. The only one who actually loves him is Leah, but that's for another time. Okay. Gotta let everybody go.
Thank you. Okay,
everybody.
Thank you. I couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah. You were amazing. Kol hakavod. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Wonderful Lala Tov. Shabbat shalom.
Okay.